Sagir joins us now for further update. Sagir, what the extension of the budget sort of sent away every other conversation that happened at the Senate. Run us through the plenary and how the extension happened.
Good evening, Felicity. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. So the issue of the extension of the 2024 budget indeed raised some concerns on the floor of plenary today, where we saw lawmakers respond to the extension of the implementation of its timeline. Of course, the major concern being the fact that 2025 is not the fiscal year for the implementation of the 2024 budget. A lot of them had raised concerns, about why the implementation of the budget is taking so much time, especially considering the fact that there are the capital component which is being asked for extension has not been extensively implemented as it should be. These lawmakers also raised concerns around what they describe as big execution capacity within ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government, stating also that if they fail to do something about it, which includes inviting the Minister of Finance and also the Accountant General of the Federation to answer before them why this has taken the course that it has taken, they may also be seen, as a laughingstock and even maybe an embarrassment upon themselves. So this is basically the conversation that went on the floor of the Senate earlier today when the extension motion was brought, the extension amendment was brought before.
Beyond the Senate passing the bill to extend the implementation of the 2024 budget, what transpired at the floor of the upper house?
So initially, before the conversation started, as you saw in my reports, there were also the issue of the sad situation in Mokwa and the casualties that was recorded as a result of that. Niger South Senator Peter Jia had raised these concerns on the floor through a motion of urgent national attention, calling on the federal government and also relief agencies to provide relief materials to those who have been affected by the flooding in Niger State. Also, there was the bill to amend the Police Trust Fund Act to ensure its extension from its initial 6-year plan to around 12 years to allow for training and provision of equipment for these officers to be provided. That also saw an accelerated passage of first, second, and third reading on the same day after, of course, Senate Rule 78 Sub 1 was suspended temporarily to allow for its expedient passage. So these were basically the issues that went on today on the floor of the Senate. But the extension of the timeline for the implementation of the 2024 budget, of course, has been the bone of contention because of the failure, like some of them mentioned, of the federal government to meet up with the obligation of ensuring that it ends in the fiscal year that it was passed.
Before I let you go, the House of Representatives is yet to pass the same for a third reading. What stalls that decision and what should we expect from the lawmakers when they reconvene on Wednesday?
Now, for the House of Representatives, the bill scaled first and second reading. Today, the committee report was laid before a plenary at the House, and then the Speaker of the House of Representatives committed the bill to the Committee of Supply. That was the much traction the bill gained in terms of legislative action. The expectation now would be in the coming days, probably in the next legislative day, we may see the bill scale third reading, and then, of course, what would follow would be concurrence by both the House and, of course, the Senate before the bill is transmitted to the executive for presidential assent.
Sagir, thank you for speaking with us.
Pleasure being on.
For further discussion on this, I'm joined now by Chartered Accountant Olusesan Okunade and Economist Dr. Samson Simon. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Okay, I understand we don't have Olusesan yet, so we'll stick with Dr. Simon and just start with this extension. Nigeria is now operating two budgets, 2024 and 2025, within a single fiscal year. The first time ever, to my knowledge. What does this mean for the country's finances, fiscal discipline, and what kind of implications could we see if this administration doesn't make it beyond 2027?
Well, this is not the first time that we're running at least two budgets concurrently, maybe the extension till the end of the year. But since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came on board, that has been the norm. Last year, we had something similar, or even worse, because we were talking about the current that year's budget, the supplementary budget, the previous year's budget, the supplementary budget of the previous year. So it's becoming the norm, and it doesn't really augur well, because the global best practice is it shouldn't be like that. You should not have overlapping budgets. But there is an upside to it. What is the upside? The government feels that there are some projects, particularly capital projects, that should have been executed, which were not executed, and they're determined to finish those projects. That is a good thing. However, it has so many downsides. It shows a lack of discipline. It shows a lack of efficiency. It also shows a lack of proper planning and execution of the budget. So I feel the ideal should still be pursued. If you look at the gold standard for budgeting in Singapore, for example, they don't do overlapping fiscal or annual budgets in a year. They try to make sure that their budgets are executed within the particular year, and they deliver almost 100% results. What stops us from doing the same thing? If we are finding it difficult, we can learn from them. Every every line item of the budget should be guided by data, and there should be proper monitoring to ensure that this budget is being executed. And we should not confuse a framework, which is okay. But when you are doing annual budgets and you are making them to overlap, it doesn't really, you don't come across as really serious, as really disciplined. And I think we need to work on that. We cannot continue in that trajectory. We cannot continue like that. We have to change course and ensure that things are done properly, and that we're disciplined, that we're efficient, and we don't take anything for granted.
We had a guest earlier when the news broke who said the procedure is outrightly unconstitutional and illegal. Is that true? And does the fact that the legislation was rushed through quickly, we had all three readings in one day, does that also portray that position?
Well, I'm not a legal practitioner, but from my knowledge of budget is a law, and that's why it becomes an act, appropriation act. So if it is a law, it's supposed to be followed as the law states it. And when the law is being passed, it's stated that it's for a particular fiscal year. So if it's extending, I think what some people that do something similar to what we do, they try to formalize it and make it legal. So that is another aspect of it that the authorities need to consider. But I think the best thing is to do away with such things as much as possible. We should have projects that we know we can execute. If our capital expenditure or the capital part of the budget is not being executed well or is underperforming, we need to find where the problem is and resolve it. But we cannot afford to continue to execute budgets like this. It doesn't augur well. It's not global best practice. It undermines our fiscal system entirely. And it's not really good. I know the authorities are carried away by the fact that there are benefits, but the downside outweigh the benefits that we get from such process.
Yeah, talking about the downside, let me quickly confirm that we now have Chartered Accountant Olusesan Okunade. Thank you for being here. Talking about, keeping things going. The 9th National Assembly introduced the January to December budget cycle. And one of the reasons given was to ensure fiscal discipline and enhance budget performance. Now, the first budget extension of this administration was in June. That not only stalled the budget cycle, but it has also made it open-ended. Now we have this further extension. Considering the pace of contract implementation, coupled with the fact that monies budgeted cannot be deemed appropriated in this country because some form of lobbying will have to happen before funds are released. That much we know. Are we ever getting back on track with the January to December budgeting cycle, or we're starting this whole process from scratch?
and good evening. Thanks for having me this evening. In response to your question, sincerely speaking, what we have happening now, people like me will consider it absurd as a finance person, knowing fully well that the kind of budget and fiscal policy we operate in the country is an annual thing which speaks from January to December. And we give that kudos to the last administration that were able to mend things. I think in 2020, we struggled to come back to January to December budgetary process. But this that we are having overlapping, it brings so many questions to bear. In what way are we going to fund the current budget that was actually passed when we know that we are still going to continue with 2024 budget? Why did we go ahead in passing 2025 budget? I know a lot of government functionaries is hiding under the medium-term expenditure plan, which gives room for multi-year. But that we must inculcate into our law to say we are shifting away from the annual budget to a multi-year planning where we cannot have it. But in as much as the current dispensation of what our law stipulates as per budget, it's an annual budget which runs from January to December. And this that we are having, I'm sure when this came up last year and they had to extend to June this year because it was considered that that of last year started around June. A lot of people frowned against it, but they were able to have their way. But as we speak, we can't have the same that was extended from June, now move again to December, now running for 18 months of cycle. So I think we need to go back to drawing board if we must continue. And every day we go out to talk about winning direct investment into the country when they don't have that confidence in our fiscal policy that can actually upturn and change over time. I think it's an area that they need to look into. As far as I'm concerned, I have not seen this happening as a finance person, and it's not the best way to go if we must actually place ourselves in the global space and operating in the global best practice, except they have every other reason behind it. If it is the medium term, then we should start adjusting our law to say our budget will not be the 12-month cycle, but now 18 to 20 more, 4 months that they are.
Sorry to interject. I was going to just pick up something you said by asking your thoughts on Senator Adiola's position. He explained that the extension was required to allow the completion of ongoing projects captured in the 2024 budget. I'd like your thoughts on that. And separately, I would also want you to speak on what could be the rationale for proposing and approving budgets that we then find problems in funding and implementing.
Okay, well, speaking to the first one, Senator Adiola is a senior colleague, and I want to believe the rationale I am yet to factor in. Possibly they will explain much more better to us. If it's in the area of completing some of the ongoing projects that we have, I think my colleagues spoke to something. It speaks so much to our indiscipline in the area of our finances, which we looked at how and why are we approving budget that we know we can't fund, knowing fully well that we don't have the capability of carrying that out. And in budget, you see, there are ways you move a particular project that you have in this particular year, consolidating it in the year to the current year of operation to say these are things that were actually transferred from the old financial year into this year, which is ongoing because of financial crisis that could not be able to achieve that. Because I asked myself the question, when we know that the 2024 budget was not fully implemented, which a lot of us have been asking, that the performance of every budget of our nation every year is below expectation. Why did we go ahead approving the 2025 and allowing two budgets to be running concurrently? We can come with the notion that there won't be preparation for 2025 budget because we want to go ahead with the
Well,
execution.
I'm told we're out of time, but I just wanted to chip in, Mr. Okunade, but that would also be a problem in itself if a year's budget is skipped for another year. Wouldn't it? In 10 seconds, please.
Yeah, it will. And that's why we say we need to discipline and follow through whatever we have actually put before the people to actually carry out a thing, a particular fiscal year.
That's a good spot to leave this conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Simon and Mr. Okunade, for your time on the news.
Thank you.